WWE is a very hot ticket right now. WWE tonight did something that, if you really think back and consider how many events they have run over the years at Madison Square Garden in New York City. New York, of course, has been their home base for so long. All of the events, hundreds of events over the years at MSG. And tonight, WWE became the highest grossing event at Madison Square Garden that they have ever put on in the history of this company. That right there, if that doesn't tell you that they're not a hot ticket right now, I don't know what does. Their ticket is so hot. Madison Square Garden was sold out tonight that they put word out to all the talent that there would be no comps, no free tickets for friends or family, because there were none to be had. So whatever the final number is, I guess we'll find out. It was a packed building tonight. I have a few friends who I know were at the show tonight, and they said that MSG was packed. And one of the reasons that the ticket is so hot and that SmackDown was packed tonight has to do with the Bloodline. And this is both a blessing and a curse for SmackDown, because it is a blessing that they have the Bloodline on Friday nights, because it is the best story going right now in WWE. WWE puts more effort and more thought into the Bloodline story than anything else on either of their shows, whether it's Monday or Friday. Because Roman Reigns is their golden goose right now. Roman Reigns is their crown jewel. He is their top guy. He is their headline attraction. And so it kind of makes sense that they would put all their eggs in that basket. But because of the Bloodline segment taking up so many of these shows, when you shine a light on everything else that happens on SmackDown week to week, you realize how weak the rest of the show is in terms of storytelling, in terms of character development. There really is not, I mean, it's just, the gap is so large between the two. So that's what I mean when I say a blessing and a curse. You get the best of the best with the Bloodline stuff, and with everything else, not so much. And that was really the tale of SmackDown tonight. If you love the Bloodline, this was the show for you. Because tonight, Roman Reigns was taken to tribal court by his cousins, Jimmy and Jey Uso, coming off of Money in the Bank when Roman ate the pin last weekend in London. This was our second tribal court segment of the year. We had one earlier this year at Raw 30 with Sami Zayn. Here it was at Madison Square Garden with Roman in the hot seat. And by the time this show was over, the main event was clear, although it's not official yet, but the main event for SummerSlam was made very clear. It should have been clear for weeks, but it is especially clear after tonight that Roman Reigns is going to put his championship on the line against Jey Uso. And that is really the big takeaway from tonight's show. Roman and Jey has been set. The battle lines have been drawn. And now we have Jey Uso not only trying to take Roman's championship from him, but trying to defend the honor of his brother, who was brutalized by Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa here tonight. We also had the in-ring return of Edge. He was supposed to be a guest on the Grayson Waller effect, and he was, but it led to a match. Now, I would have imagined that this was going to be the match for SummerSlam, but instead they pulled a fast one on us, and they gave us the match tonight, unannounced, unadvertised, on SmackDown between Edge and Grayson Waller, and what ended up being Grayson Waller's in-ring main roster debut. He had a broken leg. He broke his leg in his last NXT match a few months ago, which is the reason why we have not seen him in the ring. So tonight, this was our first time seeing him actually competing inside the ring on SmackDown. And I have a lot to say about the outcome of that match and about Grayson Waller coming out of that match and why this was such a big night for him. And not just for the obvious reasons, but why this was such a big night for him and why I believe that Grayson Waller has become what WWE had hoped Austin Theory would be, but so far has not been. Speaking of Austin Theory, he defended the United States Championship on this show against Sheamus, and we do not have a new United States Champion, and I'm happy about that. And the reason I'm happy about that is because there is somebody else who should be competing for the United States Championship against Austin Theory. And I like Sheamus, but it's not Sheamus. In fact, it is someone who was not even on the show tonight. And this was the most egregious thing of all. WWE has fallen, as they sometimes do, through no fault of their own, ass backwards into something that they did not create, but the fans kind of willed it into existence. The fans have gotten behind LA Knight in a very big way over the past couple of months. So much so that LA Knight, we found out this week, was one of the top 5 merchandise sellers in June. The guy just got his first t-shirt only a few weeks ago, and he's already one of the top merch movers in the company. LA Knight went to London last week. You heard the reaction on SmackDown last Friday. You saw and heard the reaction at Money in the Bank on Saturday. Those people so badly wanted to see him pull down that briefcase, and in the end, he fell short. And I said, don't write off LA Knight just yet. LA Knight is not buried. LA Knight is not dead. Surely WWE will continue to see and hear these reactions if his merch moves well. Right? Remember I talked about if the t-shirts sell well? Well, apparently they sold real well. And give it time, and LA Knight will hopefully be included in something meaningful on television. It doesn't have to be Money in the Bank. It could very well be the United States Championship picture. Well, in order to be included in the United States Championship picture, one must actually appear on television. LA Knight did not do that. LA Knight was at Madison Square Garden tonight. LA Knight came out to interrupt a very anti-New York City Hit Row promo. Yes, Hit Row is still employed by this company, believe it or not. Top dollar is still being paid by WWE. And LA Knight came out to interrupt them. He cut a little quick promo of his own. And of course, he was over like gangbusters in New York City. And looking at the timing issues they had on this show, there were a lot of people, frankly, who were left off the show tonight, not just LA Knight. But all the segments, all the short segments, 2-3 minute segments on the show, you mean to tell me that you couldn't find 2 minutes, even in a backstage segment, to pop the crowd and to give people watching at home something to cheer for, right? They were cheering for him last weekend, and you get to SmackDown here, Madison Square Garden, New York City. There's no room for LA Knight on this television show. You mean to tell me you couldn't find 2 minutes for this man on your television program? That was the biggest bunch of bullshit of them all. That this was the big follow-up to LA Knight's response last week by not even having him on the fucking show. The fact that he was not included on the show, if he's on the show next week and they begin the build for SummerSlam in the way that I would like to see them begin the build for SummerSlam, then that'll be fine. But I still think it was very stupid not to find a place for him on this show tonight. I said to WWE last week, remember what I said? Don't drop the ball. Don't fumble the ball on LA Knight, as they have fumbled the ball with other people in the past. Don't fumble the ball on LA Knight. We're going to find out very soon whether or not that happens or not. 1 week is not the end of the world. But that is not how you follow up the week that man had last week. Especially because he didn't win. So it's very important to get him on TV, keep him on TV, consistent television time. It's the only way he's going to stay over. The worst thing WWE could do is, oh, well, we couldn't find room for him on the show. This is just 1 week. If it happens next week or the week after, that's where I'll change my tune. But this is your Friday Night SmackDown review here for July 7th, 2023. I am the Solomonster. We got a lot to get into here because there were quite a few things here that took place on the show that we will get into. But I also have to point out first, before we even get going into the review, that it was 27 years ago today. I don't know. Some of you may not be aware of this. Some of you may have forgotten, or maybe you weren't on social media today, but it was 27 years ago today that we saw the greatest and the single most important heel turn in the history of professional wrestling. It was WCW Bash at the Beach 1996. Not only did we get the most impactful heel turn of all time, we got the formation of probably the most successful, the most copied faction of all time. The formation of the NWO, the New World Order. It was Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. And that, of course, sparked the Monday Night War period that to this day WWE loves to milk and make money off of, and people still look back on and romanticize, and I can understand why, because I lived through it. I was the perfect age, too. I was the perfect age at that time, man. It was targeted right to me. And never a more fun period in wrestling. That late 90s period and flipping back and forth between the two companies on Monday nights. And the NWO was a very big part of that. 27 years ago today was the formation. Like and subscribe. 400 likes was the goal that I set tonight. Minimum 400 likes on this video if we can hit that goal. And that's going to be up to you guys. You have the power. You're like fucking He-Man tonight. You guys have the power. We hit 400. We will do Be the Booker. Our Be the Booker segment later on. Super chats are open. Get them on in. I want to hear from you guys so we can read through all of your messages and I can shout you out and acknowledge you. Forget Roman Reigns. I can acknowledge you here on the stream. And channel memberships are open as well if you want to join and become a member, or if you want to gift memberships randomly to other people on the channel. That's pretty cool too. So go ahead and do so. Now we go from all of that to the Usos. The Usos were out to open the show tonight, and the crowd was singing along to their theme song. Thank you, Chris Jericho. They got in the ring and they talked about pinning Roman Reigns at Money in the Bank, the supposedly unbeatable Roman Reigns. Before Paul Heyman came out to interrupt the party, it was Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa interrupting the Usos. Came to the ring. Heyman said that he would be defense counsel for the tribal chief tonight in the tribal court. The Usos told him to shut his mouth, and Heyman came back and said, "No, you don't tell me to shut my mouth. There's only one man who tells me when to be quiet and when to shut my mouth." And as soon as he said that, Solo Sikoa took his hand and he covered the microphone. He put his hand over the microphone. He then took the microphone out of the wise man's hands. He threw it outside the ring. He stood in the corner with his arms crossed, waiting until finally they played the music for the tribal chief, the champ, Roman Reigns. And out he came. That took us into the first commercial, with the hook being that the trial of Roman Reigns would be kicking off after the break. So that was a smart way to keep people from changing the channel. They pretty much led off with the key segment on the show. It's like starting off with your main event. That's what they did tonight. But as we would find out later on, it was important that they opened the show with. There was a reason why they had to open the show with this, or at least have this in the first hour, because it was leading to something that happened at the end of the show. Roman gets into the ring, and immediately Roman Reigns is showered by chants of "You got pinned." He said, "You're right. I got pinned. But last time I checked, I'm still the tribal chief." He wasn't sure why he was even here tonight. He didn't call for this tribal court. He says, I didn't call for this. Why are we even here? Why did I even come here tonight? He wanted to know why they were wasting his time. And I will tell you, for a brief moment here, when he started getting into the whole way, I didn't call for this, and I didn't know where he was going with this. I was waiting. I thought for a brief second that we were going to hear The Rock's music. And The Rock was going to come out, and you know that building would have exploded if they would have hit Rock's music. But I only say that because I wasn't sure exactly where he was going with the promo, who called for this, and then Rock would come out and say, I called for it, and you know, he'd put over the Uso. Not that they were going to do Roman and Rock at SummerSlam, but anyway, that didn't happen. For the better anyway. Rock would just take attention away from Jey Uso and take attention away from where it needs to be. And it would unnecessarily tease people for a match that clearly we are not getting. So the Usos said that he wasn't going to manipulate them the way that he always does. And they threw to a video package, what they called in the video Exhibit A, which was highlights of all the times that Roman has bullied Jimmy and Jay and Solo and Heyman over the last 3 years. I mean, this is going all the way back. We got some early Bloodline segments here in this footage. They come back live, and you could hear the start of the "you fucked up" chants from the fans. Like, it just got going, and then Fox started to mute the audio, and they muted the audio for about 10 seconds. Roman said, no, I didn't. Said, that's not who I am. That's who I was forced to be. He said that he did it for them, all of them, Jimmy, Jay, Solo. I did it for all of you. That brought the bullshit chants and more muting from Fox, another 10 seconds of dead audio from Fox. Roman said that he was a WrestleMania main eventer long before the Bloodline. He didn't need the Bloodline needed him. He said, "How dare you show that footage of my worst moments?" He goes, "My daughter is in the back right now wondering, what kind of person I am." He goes, "I've got 5 children in my household. You think I needed to take on yours too?" He says, "I don't need this in my life anymore. I don't need the money. I don't need any of this." And Roman said that he's done. He doesn't want it anymore. "I'm done." And he dropped the microphone, and Jey Uso dropped the microphone at the same time. The two of them came face to face, nose to nose, eye to eye. Fans started singing the "na na na na, hey hey, goodbye" song to Roman. Roman took off the Ula Fala from around his neck, which is the Samoan necklace. That's what it's called. And he started talking off mic. And this happens a lot in these Bloodline segments where the audience at home, we can hear what he's saying. The people in the building can't hear what they're saying. But he starts talking off mic to Jay. And finally, he takes the necklace and he places it around Jay's neck, as if he is anointing him the new tribal chief, because he doesn't want to be tribal chief anymore. Now it's Jay's turn. So he puts the necklace around Jay's neck. Then he unvelcroed. You heard the screeching sound. He unvelcroed the championship from around his waist. He threw it down on the mat. And then he dropped to his knees at Jay's feet. He started crying. We had tears. Starting, if you looked, actual tears were coming down Roman's face. And Jay leaned down to talk to him. And that's when and I mean, how could you not see this coming? How could you not see this coming? How could Jey Uso not see this coming? Roman Reigns delivers a low blow to his cousin. No more children for Jey Uso. Roman Reigns was serious when he said, "I don't want to look after your kids." He wanted to make sure that Jey Uso didn't have any more kids. So he delivered a low blow. And Jimmy did not go after him right away. So this was kind of goofy. This was weird because he gives a low blow to Jey Uso. Now, Jimmy Uso was right over there, right? He's only feet away. And he sees Roman attacking his brother. And Jimmy is just standing there like he's in shock, I guess, right? But he was in shock for like a good 10 seconds. He just stood there and did nothing. And then finally, he jumps Roman. He starts laying in some shots before Solo pulled him off. And with the necklace on the ground, Solo looks down. He's standing over it. He looks down at it on the mat. The fans wanted him to take it and put it on. But Jimmy charged Roman again. He got put down then by a Samoan spike by Sikoa. Solo then picked up the Ula Fala. He picked it up, and Roman asked for it back, and Solo didn't hand it to him right away. Solo hesitated. And we're left to wonder exactly what Solo Sikoa would have done, because before he could make a decision on whether he was going to hand it back or not, Jay tackled both men from behind. Solo then planted Jay with a spinning solo. Roman and Solo, they put a beating on Jimmy outside the ring, right in front of the announce desk on the floor. When Jay tried to intervene, Solo tied him up in the ropes on the apron. And they forced him to watch as Roman mounted Jimmy, started blasting him over and over again with the undisputed title, the not-so-undisputed title. They went all Nicky Santoro from Casino on poor Jey Uso here. They made him watch. They made him watch his brother just be viciously beaten here. So then Roman picked up the top part of the ring steps. He slammed them into Jimmy's shoulder. Jimmy was standing up. He was kind of pressed up against the barricade. And with the steel ring steps, he smashed it a couple of times into Jimmy's shoulder. Jay managed to free himself. He jumped Reigns again. Solo, though, quickly put him back down with the Samoan spike. Then he grabs Jay. He flings Jay over the announce desk. He cleared the entire desk. He hit the barricade and bounced off. So now Jay is down on the floor. Roman begins to bury him underneath the giant announcer chairs, kind of like piled him on top of Jay. So now Jay is buried. See, LA Knight's not buried. Jey Uso is buried. Not LA Knight, not yet. So with Jay out of the picture, Roman yells at Solo to finish off Jimmy, and that's what he did. He laid Jimmy across the top of the announce desk, and he splashed him through the desk, jumping off the barricade. Paul Heyman placed the Ulafala back around Roman's neck, and Roman posed with his championship while the agents and referees, they rushed out to help Jimmy Uso. When this segment was over, I was amazed that we were 35 minutes into this show. I did not realize, as I was watching this entire segment, I did not realize that we were already past the half-hour mark of this show. It was 8:35 p.m. By my clock when this segment finally cut to commercial. 35 minutes is a very long time to go on a wrestling show without an actual wrestling match. I mean, we got action here. It wasn't like it was all talk, it was mostly talk. But 35 minutes is a long time to go on a wrestling show without a single match. And there have been a lot of terrible, god-awful talking segments that feel like a hell of a lot longer than 35 minutes. But they'll go 20, 25, 30 minutes sometimes. Remember, we used to get those long, drawn-out opening segments on Raw every single week. That was a staple of their television shows for so long. So I've seen my fair share of terrible talking segments on WWE television over the years. This was not one of them. This was an excellent segment. This was, I thought, great television. These Bloodline segments, they continue to be the most must-see. If there's anything must-see about WWE television, it's the Bloodline stuff. And you can debate whether or not there is anything must-see anymore about WWE. If there is, this is it, right here. It's these segments. They continue to be of a higher quality and caliber than anything else on WWE programming. Even with the Roman in tears, I'd like to think that Roman, in his mind, like a good actor, he had to go back in his mind to a dark time in his life. And he had to think back to that Suffering Succotash promo. And that just turned on the waterworks. And that's what got Roman to start crying real tears on television during this segment. And look, this was necessary. What we saw here in this segment, this was necessary. This is what it had to be. Roman Reigns was embarrassed at Money in the Bank. That was the story they wanted to tell. Whether you agree he should have eaten the pin before losing the titles or not, and I would not have pinned him until it was time for him to lose the championships, but they did. And because of that, Roman Reigns could not show up on the show tonight all smiles. Roman Reigns could not have showed up on the show tonight in a good mood. Roman Reigns was embarrassed, and tonight this was his way of doling out payback to his cousins, and to Jey Uso specifically, but to both of his cousins for what they did to him in London last weekend. This was Roman's revenge. Here in this segment, he suckered them in, and he lowered the boom. And he tried to send a message that he is not one to be embarrassed. And he doled out that tough love. And what they also did in this segment, they wrote Jimmy Uso off television. We should not see Jimmy Uso again until SummerSlam. The next time, if it were me, the next time we see Jimmy Uso on television is not until Ford Field, August 5th at SummerSlam. What we saw tonight was the writing off of the Jey Uso character, because the very next segment on the show was Jimmy strapped to a gurney, being stretchered out of the building, loaded up into an ambulance, and taken to a local medical facility. And Jey Uso was right there with his brother. I'm here. I'm with you. And he got in the back of the ambulance, and Adam Pearce, sent them on their way so that Jey Uso, or Jimmy rather, could get the medical attention that he needed. This now gives Jey Uso more incentive to not only want to take the championship away from Roman Reigns, but to get revenge for his brother, for his twin. And what happened to Jimmy on this show tonight? Now it's personal. And it set the stage for what was yet to come at the end of the show. So as long as this segment was, I thought that this was a tremendous piece of business here, and it did not feel like 35 minutes. It blew right by. I was genuinely surprised when I looked at the clock and I saw what time it was when this segment was over. Now, I will say that, unfortunately, there's no doubt in my mind this segment went long. This segment clearly went long, and it fucked with the entire rest of the show. So there is that downside to it. When you have a segment that goes that long and is not necessarily designed to go that long, even if it's only designed to go 30 minutes and it goes the extra 5, it just wreaks havoc on the entire show. And because this segment went so long, the rest of the show suffered because of it. We had Austin Theory up next against Sheamus. This was for the United States Championship. They cut to commercial 90 seconds into the match, and the commercials really killed this, which again was a byproduct, I'm sure, of that opening segment going longer than they originally intended without a single commercial break. I mean, when Roman made his entrance, they went to commercial. Once they came back to commercial and we got the actual tribal court segment from start to finish, there was no break. No break. So because of that, here we go. We have this match here. 90 seconds in, we get a break. They took a second break not long after that, after Sheamus had Theory in position for the white noise. Theory, though, slipped out and delivered a spin-out torture rack bomb for a near fall. So coming out of that commercial break, Sheamus was in control. He went for the Celtic Cross. Theory cut him off. Sheamus, though, hit a spine buster and applied the cloverleaf. Here comes Pretty Deadly running down to the ring. Sheamus let go of the hold to go fight them off on the apron. Theory hit Sheamus with a drop kick as the Brawling Brutes then ran down to the ring to try to even the odds, and they took out Elton Prince outside. Sheamus targeted Kit Wilson. My God, these names. He targeted Kit Wilson, who was on the apron. That allowed Theory, with the distraction, to roll up Sheamus, grab the fistful of tights, or trunks, I guess, and he pinned Sheamus to retain the U.S. title. You know, it's too bad because the crowd was into some of the late near falls, but the finish was just completely lame. And you could say, well, Sheamus is Theory is a heel, and so that's what heels do. Maybe so, but it was fucking lame. It's a very lame finish. I'm glad Sheamus didn't win, though. I'm glad he didn't win because LA Knight should be the one challenging Austin Theory at SummerSlam for the United States Championship. And this was the point that I made in my Money in the Bank review last weekend, is that him not winning the briefcase is not the end if the plan is, for example, to have him challenge Theory and go after the U.S. title next, because even though he's still positioned as a heel, right, there's been no babyface turn for LA Knight. LA Knight has not done anything to indicate that he's now a babyface. It's the crowd that's just taking to him because they're entertained by him. They like him. There's something about this guy that the people like. You don't start getting reactions like he's been getting now for months, or go to the UK and get cheered over someone like Pete Dunne, unless the people like you and you're fucking over. So whatever it is about him that the people like, stay the course and just keep doing that. And the smart play here would be to put him in the ring with somebody the people don't like. Well, guess what? The people don't like Austin Theory. And part of the reason they don't like Austin Theory is because Austin Theory is fucking boring. You could even make the argument that Austin Theory is a better in-ring performer than LA Knight. But here's the thing, LA Knight has something Austin Theory doesn't have. He's got a certain charisma and personality that draws people in and people generally find more entertaining. Austin Theory comes out, there's nothing there. Totally one-dimensional. His character is no different now than it was 4 months ago. If anything, he's actually less over now, if you could argue that he was ever over. He's less over now than he was before he wrestled John Cena at WrestleMania. And I can go on another rant about that whole thing. How they wasted a John Cena match at WrestleMania this year. A John Cena win. A John Cena victory at WrestleMania for Austin Theory. And what has it led to? Austin Theory is now lower on the card, it feels like. He's in a worse position now than he was heading into WrestleMania before he beat John Cena. Explain that one to me. That's on WWE. I can't even put that on Theory. That's on the company. That's on Vince McMahon. Remember Theory's his boy? That's on Vince McMahon. LA Knight has something that Austin Theory doesn't have. And he also has the United States Championship. So there you go. That should be your SummerSlam match right there. The fact that Sheamus didn't win the title gives me hope that that is the direction that they're going to be going in. And we just have to wait until next week. Again, inexplicably, he wasn't on the show. Maybe he was planned for a segment. Now, see, this is me now giving them the benefit of the doubt. We always We know, right? Here, smack the hair. We always know what happens when I give this company the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they had a role for him on this show, and because of the time issues, he got cut. He got cut. Maybe. We'll find out next Friday. Up next was the Grayson Waller effect, and his guest on the show was the rated R superstar Edge, who we have not seen in a while. Have we seen Edge since WrestleMania? I don't even remember offhand if we've seen Edge since WrestleMania. And the match that he had with Finn Balor. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway, Edge was back on the show tonight. He was back on SmackDown. He tried to fire up the crowd, got cut off by Waller, who told him to make his big announcement. And Edge acted like he had no idea what he was talking about. What big announcement are you referring to? He didn't know. He said that it was the 25-year anniversary of his WWE debut, and he wanted to celebrate here, and he also wanted to celebrate in Toronto next month. For those who don't know, SmackDown is at the Scotiabank Arena where Forbidden Door was. They're in Toronto next month on August 18th for SmackDown. You know, Edge has said he wants to retire in Toronto. He's mentioned that fact quite a few times recently. But I don't think it's happening on a random SmackDown next month. But they will be in Toronto. So Waller tried to coax him into some sort of retirement announcement. Edge ignored him. Instead, he talked about his very first pay-per-view appearance, which was SummerSlam 1998, in this very building, in Madison Square Garden. And he mentioned the fact that it came in a tag team match where he teamed with Sable against Mark Merrow and Jacqueline. And I said, uh-oh, he said the magic word. He said the S word. And I was waiting for Brock's music to hit. We never did get a Brock and Edge feud. No, I don't think we did. We never did get a Brock Lesnar Edge feud. So he pointed out the part of the crowd. He goes, I made my entrance right over there in that section over there. And then he pointed out straight ahead on the hard camera side, just directly ahead. That's where the old short aisleway used to be in Madison Square Garden. Unfortunately, it's there. It's not there anymore. It's a relic. It's a thing of the past. When they renovated the garden a few years ago, the short aisleway went away. So unfortunately, it's not there anymore. Waller interrupted, and he revealed that Edge was here to announce his retirement. Let's just get to the point, he says. You're here to announce your retirement. He told the fans to thank Edge. Edge said that Waller had been here for what? Half a hiccup? And hasn't even had a match on the main roster yet, and you've flopped into deep waters here. Edge told Waller that it was time to sink or swim. He says, I'm not retiring. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with the powers that be earlier today, and I got myself a match tonight against you. And we learned later that it was made official that our main event was going to be Edge one-on-one with Grayson Waller. And the surprising thing about this, again, is that it was completely unannounced, and I thought they were going to do them. I thought this segment was to set up a SummerSlam match between these two. But instead, they went and they announced the match for SmackDown tonight. We had AJ Styles one-on-one with Karrion Kross. Poor Karrion Kross. Where do I begin? Karrion Kross, there were a couple of bad signs here. Actually 3 bad signs. The first bad sign is that Karrion Kross did not even get an entrance. And really, all Karrion Kross is in this company at this point is an entrance. They don't have him doing anything else. So when you take the entrance away from him, what does he have left? He has Scarlett in his corner. That's it. So no entrance for Karrion Kross. That's number 1. The second bad sign was the giant wrap around his left thigh. And Michael Cole made mention of this on commentary. He pointed out that there were rumors of a possible leg injury, which never came into play here in this match, nor has anybody heard about any Karrion Kross leg injury, so it sounded legit that he might have an injury. Kross landed a cross hammer early. He went to apply the cross jacket. Styles, though, escaped. He had a forearm strike. He set up for a phenomenal forearm, but Scarlett got involved, and so Michin came over, and she threw Scarlett hard into the barricade to take her out of the picture. Styles then landed the phenomenal forearm, and he pinned Karrion Kross in 2.5 minutes. This did not do any favors for Karrion Kross. That was a third bad sign, by the way, that he lost in 2 minutes. So this did not do him any favors. I am assuming that the leg injury is legit. And what I'm guessing happened here is that they would have gone longer. There were a couple things here, because if he's got a legitimate injury, he wasn't going to be able to do a long match. How much of this was due to a possible legitimate injury? How much of this was due to time being cut because the opening segment went so long? May have been a combination of those two things, but I'm guessing it's a legitimate injury, and he just was limited in what he can do. And hey, credit to him. If he's really hurt, I don't know how serious the injury is. It can't be overly serious, I would hope, given the fact they let him work and he actually still had a 2-minute match. I mean, if he was that injured, he just would have been pulled from the show. So if it was a real injury, it was only 2 minutes, but he gutted through it. And look, if he's limited in what he can do, he can't work a full match, then this is what you end up with. You end up with a 2-minute loss. That may have been why we got what we got here. Hopefully, whatever it is not too serious. But if it is an injury and he is going to be gone for a little bit, if I'm him, I'm looking at this as a blessing in disguise. Try to turn a negative into a positive. The best thing that could happen to him right now is to get him off television for a little bit, whether it's weeks or months, whatever it is. Get him off television, hit the reset button, and start over again. And I don't know what that looks like. I've made suggestions before about what I'd like to see Karrion Kross doing. I've seen videos of him and Scarlett together that they posted on their YouTube channel of them just being, kind of acting more natural and not playing a gimmick or a character. And there's a certain charisma the two of them have together that we never get to see on television because he's out there playing a character. And it just hasn't worked. It just hasn't taken off. It's a cool entrance that he has. And then the bell rings and we just haven't seen him have the chance to do much of anything. Or even sink his teeth into a really good program with somebody where he gets television time to cut promos. And I'm not just talking about the tarot card stuff, but like really just cut promos. We just haven't seen him have the chance to do that. So this entire run for him so far, since he came back, has been a fucking bust. I don't care what anybody says. It has been a bust. The best thing that could happen is to push the reset button, take some time off, let people forget about him for a little bit, and try to come up with a plan B. Or in this case for him, I guess it would be a plan C. Because right now, it's just there's nothing going on here. But if there's an injury, use the injury to your advantage and try to come back with something totally different. I think he just needs a total makeover. Just the character, maybe the look, everything. Start from scratch, because if he just comes back and he's doing the same shit that he's doing now, it ain't going to work. If it was going to work, it would have worked by now. This guy's been back in the company now for almost a year. If it hasn't worked by now, doing what he's doing, it's not going to work. So try to come up with something different. And maybe, with a fresh start, maybe he'll find some luck. Maybe he'll find some success. Otherwise, there isn't much else to say about this. We had Asuka, who was already in the ring coming out of the commercial break. She actually came out to make her entrance before the commercial. And they did the whole thing, of course, where she was probably just standing in the ring in a darkened arena for 4 minutes, waiting for them to come back live on the air. So finally, they did come back. Asuka cackled, and she said that nobody is ready for Asuka. It's a hell of a promo. Bianca Belair's music hit, and Bianca immediately just charged down to the ring, and we had a brawl between the two women. Charlotte Flair's music followed, and out she came. And yeah, it definitely felt like they were rushing through this here. It felt like, boy, we gotta get this done here because we're running low on time. Asuka kicked both of them in the face. Io Sky then showed up, and Io hit Asuka from behind with her Money in the Bank briefcase. She actually hit Asuka several times with her Money in the Bank briefcase, and she was out there with Bayley as well. So then she went up. She hit the Genius of the Sky moonsault. Bayley was with her. She attempted to hand the briefcase over to the referee outside the ring because Io Sky was going to cash in her Money in the Bank briefcase, even though you knew she wasn't cashing in her Money in the Bank. They wanted you to think that she was cashing in her Money in the Bank. But Bayley was trying to hand off the briefcase. Bianca reached in. She dragged Bayley out to the floor to booze. In the ring, Charlotte booted the briefcase back into Io's face, also to booze. So Io never did officially cash in her Money in the Bank. And as for Asuka, in the middle of all this, she escaped the ring with her championship. She retreated up the aisle, and that was the end of that. Not a very smart plan here by Bayley and Io. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what we're supposed to believe they were thinking here. But you had Asuka, or not Asuka, you had Bayley.
I have one pair of skinny jeans, and I'm going to wear them every week just to piss you off.
Thank you, Big Dave. Dave Batista has one pair of skinny jeans, and he is going to wear them every single week just to piss you off. Hey, Daniel, thank you for the $35 Batista skinny jeans super chat. I miss heel Batista. Heel Hollywood Batista. I do miss that version. We didn't have him on television for very long. It was literally, 3 or 4 months maybe. It's kind of like Hollywood Rock. We didn't have him for long enough. But yeah, I don't know what the plan was here with Bayley and Io trying to cash in on a fresh Asuka. Yeah, normally you would cash in on somebody when they're down or when they've just wrestled a fucking 30-minute match. She tries to cash in on a fresh Asuka when she has two other people in Charlotte and Bianca who are already out there at ringside. I mean, there's stupid, and then there's brain dead stupid. So this did not make them seem very bright here with their cash-in attempt. So it was 9:25 p.m., and Edge was already making his entrance for his match with Grayson Waller. He was in his gear. He was ready to go. But not before another commercial. Now it was getting ridiculous. They gave us an actual match between these two. There was no swerve to push the match off for, SummerSlam. We actually got them one-on-one here. I guess Edge really just did want to work a match at Madison Square Garden. He's got retirement on the brain. Like I said, he's talked about Toronto. It may not be this year, but by next year, I think next year is going to be it for Edge. I really do. I think there's going to be some show next year in Toronto. He's going to want that to be his retirement match. And at some point in 2024, I do believe that Edge is going to be done as an in-ring, as at least with the current schedule that he has. Can I tell you that Edge will never, ever wrestle again? I've learned you can't say that about anybody. I learned that when Bret Hart wrestled a WrestleMania match in 2010. Never say never. I learned that with Bret Hart. I learned that with Daniel Bryan. Right? I learned that with, who's the other person? Well, with Edge. Fucking Edge coming back after 9 years. Fool me once. But I do think next year is probably going to be it for Edge. So maybe tonight he just felt like, you know what? This could be my last time working a match here at MSG. So get me on the show. Put me in the ring with somebody. Right? And Grayson Waller was the chosen opponent. Edge caught Waller in midair and dropped him with a Scott Hall sack of shit slam. That's what he used to call it. He set up for the spear. Waller, though, cut him off with a knee strike and tossed him out to the floor. Waller followed that with a baseball slide to the outside, and then he clotheslined Edge. And guess what happened next? They took us into another commercial break. Another commercial break, and it wasn't even all that long since the last one. But now we're back into commercial. Coming out of the break, Waller caught Edge with a jumping DDT from the middle rope. After that, he applied a cravat. So he was working on the surgically repaired neck. The fans were trying to rally Edge. Michael Cole told us he broke in with some breaking news at this point. Michael Cole informed us that Jey Uso had just returned from the local medical facility where his brother Jimmy was taken. Jey Uso had come back to the arena and he has arrived. Because I was wondering, I'm looking at the clock and I'm saying, boy, if this is the main event, they came out awfully early for this main event. Clearly, they're going to be doing something at the end of the show. And once he started talking about Jey Uso being back, then it made sense what they were saving for the end. Waller hit a running, leaping unprettier. So he just charged out of the corner, jumped up. I thought he was going for a blockbuster, but he was able to hook Edge's arms as he was coming over, and he hit the old, I say the old, I mean, he's still wrestling, but Christian, the kill switch. He hit the kill switch. Drove Edge face first into the mat. I thought that was great. And Michael Cole did mention Christian by name after that. Edge kicked out at 2.5. Edge recovered. He hit an execution DDT. Then he tried for a spear in the corner, but Waller moved. And for the finish, Waller backed up the aisle. If you've seen his matches in NXT, you know what his finish is. He goes to the aisleway, maybe halfway, gets a running start, and he went for his rolling somersault stunner into the ring, but as he rolled inside, Edge caught him with a spear, and he pinned him. You know, as you know, I guess cool. It's kind of a cool looking move. It really depends, though, on how much speed he can get on it. On the one hand, it kind of looks cool. On the other hand, it's actually a pretty ludicrous move. And I kind of want people from now on to just hit him with a fucking spear when he does that somersault into the ring. Just because it is kind of an absurd move. But I thought that was a cool finish to overall what was a good match. Now, Edge got on the mic when the match was over. Didn't have much to say, but he got on the mic and he looked at Waller, who was down in the corner, and he said, "Hey, Waller, you swam." Right? He was like a sperm tonight. You swam. Congratulations. It was a good match. I may be the only person on this platform tonight, by the way, comparing Grayson Waller to sperm, but there you go. It was a good match. The crowd was not hot for it throughout. There were some quiet parts, but they were with him for the high points of the match. And Edge gave him a lot. You know, he gave him a lot of offense in this match. And in the end, even though Waller is the heel, he endorsed him. And in that respect, it reminded me of Undertaker and Jeff Hardy from Raw back in 2002. When Undertaker and Jeff Hardy had their ladder match for the Undisputed Championship, Undertaker was the heel, Jeff Hardy was the babyface. Jeff Hardy lost, and the heel, the Undertaker, pulled him back up to his feet when the match was over, and he gave him a nod of respect. He didn't beat him up. He didn't kick him in the nuts. He showed him respect. That was his way, even though Jeff lost, of putting over Jeff Hardy for his toughness and his tenacity and his courage. There are different ways that you can put somebody over. That's what this was. That's what this was. Now, this match will not be remembered as fondly as Undertaker and Jeff Hardy. I'm not comparing the two matches. But what I'm saying is, it's that sort of endorsement where even though the other person is the heel, you can still, get on the mic, as Edge did here, and say, you know what? You impressed me. You showed me that you could hang. And that's huge. For him to do that here, that's huge. You can tell, very easy to tell, how high this company is on Grayson Waller. The fact that they put him in the ring with John Cena for a segment in London last weekend at Money in the Bank, even though Cena left him laying with an attitude adjustment, he got to share the ring and share promo time with John Cena. And less than a week later, he goes from London at the O2 with Cena to Madison Square Garden here. And not only a promo segment, but a match, a full-blown match with Edge. So, I mean, that tells you something right there. They wouldn't just put anybody in that position. And not only that, but he's main eventing. I mean, this was technically not the main event, but it was the last match on the show. Main eventing SmackDown in his very first match against the Hall of Famer in Edge. Like I said, that's huge. I don't know what they do with Edge at SummerSlam now, but I will say this. Grayson Waller has only been on SmackDown television for a matter of weeks, right? He was drafted to SmackDown. He started making appearances and doing his talk show segments. So he's probably been on television now off and on for a good, 5 or 6 weeks, I would say. He's not on the show every week, but let's call it 6 weeks, right? Not a very long time. Not a very big body of work on the main roster so far. And this was only his first match here tonight. And already he is what I believe they want or wanted Austin Theory to be. I made that comparison earlier on in the stream, and that's what struck me. And we saw both of them on the show tonight. We saw Theory wrestling, and we saw Waller wrestling later on in the show. Theory is technically good in the ring. He can work. He's had some really good matches with people back when he was on Raw and also on SmackDown. So he can work, but he is just a generic heel. He is a totally one-dimensional personality. There is nothing particularly interesting about him that we have been exposed to so far. He might have an interesting story. He might be a funny guy behind the scenes. I don't know. I've never met him, and we certainly haven't seen that side of him. Even as a sarcastic heel, there can be heels who are entertaining in their own way. There really is nothing like that when it comes to the Austin Theory character on television. Very generic, very bland, very one-dimensional. There's been no evolution. There's been no development really for months now. Grayson Waller has more personality and charisma than Theory does, and he's just more naturally unlikable. You're going to be a heel, you want people to hate you. I dislike Grayson Waller as a character more than I do Austin Theory. With Austin Theory, it's more kind of this feeling of apathy. With Waller, there's just something about him that just rubs me the wrong way and just drives me nuts. So when you compare the two in that way, you can see where I'm coming from when I say that Waller has already kind of, outranked Theory, because Theory's the U.S. champion, but I really do look at him and think this is the kind of heel that they want Austin Theory to be. And he's just not that. And part of that is on him, but part of that also is on the way that they booked him, especially since WrestleMania, since the match with Cena. It was very telling to me how they had Edge, a Hall of Famer, get on the mic and say what he said. You swam, right? That's his way of saying, good job, kid. And compare that to the build-up to WrestleMania 39. Remember the promo segment on Raw with John Cena and Austin Theory? Theory didn't say a word. And Cena stood there and he skewered him. He destroyed him. He buried him on the microphone. Because everything that John Cena said in that segment was true. Everything he was saying about Austin Theory was true. It hit a little close to home. And remember what Cena said about him in that segment. You're not ready. I can't bring myself to care about you. When you're on television, people change the channel because they don't want to see you. Like, the things that he was saying were brutal. Brutal because they were true. And Theory had no comeback. Theory went to WrestleMania and he beat Cena, but Cena never endorsed him. Cena's whole thing is, with Theory, you don't belong. What did Theory do at WrestleMania to prove him wrong? Did Cena come out on television the next night and say, hey, Austin Theory, I was wrong, you belong? No, they had a match. It was a subpar match, and a lot of that is on Cena, quite frankly. Cena did the bare minimum in that match. He's not a full-time performer anymore. That coupled with the fact that he was probably filming something and didn't want to get hurt, so we got a very boring fucking match between the two of them. So how does a boring match with John Cena at WrestleMania that he cheated to win do anything to help Austin Theory if there's no plan to follow up on it? At least if they had some plan for him coming out of WrestleMania. They had nothing. So it was the absolute worst possible outcome, even though he won. Because Cena buried him on the microphone. They had a terrible match. And then we have seen less of Austin Theory on television in the last 3 months than we did in the 3 months that preceded the match at WrestleMania. So it's an interesting dichotomy there. Edge endorses Waller, his very first match on television, and a pretty good match. He never really got that endorsement Theory did from John Cena. So again, when I say that he is what they kind of had hoped Theory would be, look, maybe Theory will eventually grow into that role. Maybe Theory will come out of his shell and we'll see a different side of him. I don't know, but I was paying very close attention to the differences between the two, and it was very noticeable to me on this show. Now, as far as one more thing on Waller, as far as him losing in his debut match, I'm sure that'll get people talking about whether or not that was the right call. Generally, I'm not a fan of doing that. I think if you're going to debut somebody, you want to portray them in the strongest possible way. Beating them in their very first match is not the way to go, typically. But him losing a competitive match, and they went like 12 or 13 minutes. Him losing a competitive match to Edge, a multi-time world champion, a Hall of Famer, and not only having a competitive match with Edge, he took the majority of the match before Edge ultimately beat him in the end. So to put him in a match like that and give him as much as Edge gave him, and then giving him the endorsement after the match, Waller got a hell of a lot more out of losing tonight the way that he did and the way everything worked out than he would have getting a win in his first match over Ridge Holland or over Santos Escobar. He got a lot more out of this tonight than he would have out of a win against most of the people in the middle of the card on that SmackDown roster. So it was a good night for Grayson Waller. Now back from the final break, Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and Paul Heyman. The remaining members, all the remaining members of the Bloodline were already in the ring. Boy, Karrion Kross gets no entrance tonight, and even Roman Reigns doesn't get an entrance. But at least Roman got an entrance at the beginning of the show. So technically, he did get an entrance. Roman asked Madison Square Garden one more time to acknowledge him before he was interrupted by the Usos' music. And they waited for Jey Uso to come down the aisle, but there was no Jey Uso. Instead, he came through the crowd, no shirt on. He came straight from the hospital, coming through the crowd. He took out Solo Sikoa at ringside. He was pacing back and forth outside the ring in front of the announce desk as Roman Reigns was in the ring, and he was yelling stuff at him. Jey grabbed a steel chair. He got into the ring. He buried the chair in Roman's gut. Solo came back in, and Jey annihilated him. Chair shot after chair shot after chair shot to the back, to the shoulder. He was destroying this man with chair shots. While Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman, they retreated. They left the ring and they retreated all the way up to the stage. Roman, though, left his title belt behind. Jey picked up the championship. He also was handed a microphone. He said, "Trial of the Tribal Chief. You're looking at the judge, jury, and executioner now. Now, I gots to get you," he said. I'm just trying to say it the way he did. He goes, "This is trial by combat now. This isn't about Jimmy or about any wise man. This is about you and me one-on-one, and you better accept my challenge so I can whoop your ass one more time." And the crowd of Madison Square Garden cheered, and that is how they went off the air. And that right there is your SummerSlam main event. It will be Roman Reigns defending the championship one-on-one against Jey Uso. That is your main event at SummerSlam. Main event, Jey Uso is back. This will be his second straight. Actually, wait. Well, technically, third. Would it be third? No. Well, I mean, it depends, I guess, because the Usos got involved at Night of Champions. They played a very big role. I would count that, honestly. I would count that. So the Usos main event at WrestleMania. The Usos were involved in the main event of Night of Champions. The Usos headlined Money in the Bank and won. And now Jey Uso is going to be headlining his first SummerSlam. And this is also coming off a year where the Usos were obviously very involved in the closing scene at the Royal Rumble. So this is main event Jey Uso here this year. But this will be the first time we have Roman Reigns and Jey Uso one-on-one together on pay-per-view in 3 years. This goes back to the very beginnings of the Bloodline, when Roman came back and he won the Universal Championship and he first started to manipulate his cousin. The Bloodline was Roman, Jey, and Paul Heyman. There was no Jimmy, he was still hurt, and there was no Solo Sikoa. People didn't even know who Solo Sikoa was. So this is now being brought back to the very beginning, and we're getting Roman and Jey. And I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who think, man, this has got to be it. This is how you close out the story, by having Jey Uso pin Roman Reigns and become the champion. It's not going to happen. That's why Jey got the pin at Money in the Bank. That was his moment. And I said it when I did the review that night. I said, I hope all you people waiting for the big Jey Uso story arc to close, it closed. It's come full circle. He got the pinfall over Roman Reigns. He's going to go to SummerSlam now, and he's going to lose. Because Jey Uso is not going to be the WWE champion. If Jey Uso was to become the WWE champion, it would be for a matter of seconds before somebody cashed in Money in the Bank and took it away from him. And I don't see that happening. But story-wise, it is the match to do. And it's going to be a hell of a match. You know, they've had very few misses with this Bloodline stuff so far. I am sure that Roman and Jey will be no different at SummerSlam. Roman also, and this is worth pointing out, something that happened here in this segment that I'm sure is going to come back around at some point or be brought up, is that Roman left Solo Sikoa alone to die in the ring. Jey Uso destroyed this man with chair shots, and Roman left him in there all by himself. He didn't make any attempt to come back down to the ring and to help out Solo Sikoa. He left him there to take a beating from Jey Uso, and that is something that Solo Sikoa, I'm sure, is not going to forget. Because, you know, we've also talked about, when is Solo going to break away from Roman? When is Roman going to lose his loyalty? And what happened here at the end of this segment, I'm sure, is something that's going to come into play later on, whether it's at SummerSlam, during the main event, or sometime later on when Solo finally does break away from Roman, and Solo realizes everything my brother said was true. Remember what Jimmy said to Solo a few weeks ago? He's gonna kick you in the dirt. He doesn't care about you. Eventually, he'll come to that realization. This segment here was done this way for a reason. I'm sure this is going to play into the story. But this was the Bloodline show. Make no mistake about it. And if you remove all Bloodline stuff from this episode of SmackDown, it was a noteworthy show in that we had a U.S. title defense and we had Edge wrestling on television, which doesn't happen very often. Just because it's noteworthy does not mean that it would be a good show. If you take out the Bloodline stuff, I don't know how they would have filled the other segments. Maybe we would have had LA Knight on this show, but this is not a great show if you take the Bloodline stuff out of the equation. It's a very weak show. And therein lies the problem. They're going to milk this Bloodline stuff for all it's worth. It's still working. I'm enjoying it. I hope it continues on for a while yet, but there is going to be an end date to this. And they still are in a situation where if it were to all come crashing down next month, what do they have to replace the Bloodline? What do they have to fill the gap? I don't see it. They don't have anything. So that's why I say, whether it's LA Knight getting over when they weren't expecting it, okay, run with it. Or the women's stuff, right? In the women's division right now, they're trying to get something going now with Charlotte and Bianca and Asuka. Now Io has the briefcase, and all of that is makes for an interesting situation. Even though the segment tonight was just a total rush job and it really just wasn't very good. But that's still the biggest problem I see going forward with SmackDown. And why I say it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing as long as the Bloodline stays strong. The minute that it comes to an end, they got some real problems. But the Bloodline stuff was fantastic tonight. It's just too bad that the timing of that opening segment clearly wreaked havoc with the rest of the show. Let's take a look at the Twitter poll. What did you think? I shouldn't even call it SmackDown. What did you think of As the World Turns, the Bloodline edition? 78% thumbs up and 21.7% thumbs down for the show tonight. So at Solomonster, for those of you who are still left on Twitter, that is the place where you can go to vote. Now, I want to, before I get into your super chats, and again, get them on in because I'm going to be reading them here in a moment. I'll be playing the role of, well, I guess you'll be playing the role of Roman Reigns. I'll be acknowledging you, but I am going to be live. The plan is to be live tomorrow night. In less than 24 hours, I'll be live after AEW Collision, which is live again this week. It was taped last week, but it's live tomorrow night. It's a big show. We have CM Punk against Samoa Joe. Their first singles match, I believe, since 2005, 2004, or 2000. I think 2005 might have been a multi-man match. But their first singles match in almost 20 years. It's going to be the semifinals of the Owen Hart tournament. Ricky Starks also in the tournament takes on Powerhouse Hobbs. We have Athena against Willow Nightingale in an Owen Hart tournament match. And we have FTR against Switchblade Jay White and Juice Robinson. That is a non-title match. That is an AEW Tag Team Title Eliminator match. So that is the lineup for Collision on TNT tomorrow night. I will be live after the show is over, so you can come on back, and we'll talk about Punk and Joe. Punk and Joe for the first time in a very long time. I am looking forward to that match. That was the opponent I was hoping that they would give Punk if Punk was going to be coming back. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's take a look at your Super Chats. What did you guys think of the Bloodline show tonight? Saw a lot of opinions on social media tonight during the show. I tweeted something out about the opening segment that I liked, and of course I would say half of it was positive and half of it was hate. I have to be reminded sometimes of, is tonight the night that I am carrying the water for WWE, or is tonight the night that I'm carrying the water for AEW? I'm never sure. So apparently the people online, some of them, were reminding me that tonight I was carrying the water for WWE, which is good to know. Sometimes I just need a little reminder. Joseph Brooks. Cherish, keep, borrow, and sell on these years of The Rock as a wrestler, not as a character, as a wrestler and his best matches. 98, 2000, 2001, 2002. As a wrestler, I'd probably go 2000. I probably would go 2000. 2000 and, 2000, 2001, 98, and then 2002. Even though 2002 had that Rock Hogan match at WrestleMania, which is one of my all-time favorite matches. I just think his overall body of work each year, that's how I would rank those years. Joseph Brooks says, also buy, rent, sell on these fantasy TNA and WWE matches and also fantasy programs. Kane against Abyss. The Motor City Machine Guns against the Hardy Boys, or Triple H and Evolution against the Main Event Mafia. Me personally, Main Event Mafia was who? Was Kevin Nash, Sting, Kurt Angle, Scott Steiner, and Booker T also in there? So probably Triple H and Evolution against the Main Event Mafia. Right? I'd probably buy on that. I feel like Prime Kane against Prime Abyss would have been really good. And then the Hardys and the Motor City Machine Guns. Aussie of Steel, I know it's been said by a few people, but Grayson Waller is already what WWE management somehow believe Austin Theory is right now. You and I think on the same wavelength, my friend. You and I... we think the same. Canyon Price, the Texas Rangers are going to win the World Series because the Tribal Chief said so. Slim Yoshi with the $5. Solomonster, with how well Grayson Waller has been presented lately, do you think he will rise to the top of the card sooner rather than later? No, I wouldn't say sooner rather than later. That implies that he's going to be a main event player instantly. I don't see that happening right away. I do think, though, that he's going to have an easier time than someone like Theory. And I think that we will see Waller, I would say like upper mid-card. I don't see him being part of the main event scene just yet. Solo Sikoa made his debut and instantly was a top guy just by his association with the Bloodline. Grayson Waller doesn't have that same luxury. But I do think that he's going to be a big player on SmackDown. I think he showed that tonight. I thought he had a very good showing tonight. Justin Glasner, where is the Balzac Super Chat? I don't know. I don't know what that would be. I have to figure out what that would be. Boots, it may be the booze talking, but was Brett right? Who am I to doubt El Dandy? Also, how can Tony improve the Owen Hart tournament in 2024? Well, that depends. What do you think needs improving right now from what he's doing. I mean, he had names like Punk and Joe in the tournament this year. I do think you have to have certain name talents in the tournament. It can't just be a tournament of just up-and-comers. So I think having people like Punk and Joe in the tournament this year, I really believe that Kojima was just a replacement for Kenta. I think Kenta would have been in the tournament. Then on the other side, you have Starks and Hobbs, who are two stars who are on the rise. So I think he got it right. I think Tony got it right more so this year, at least on the men's side, than he did last year. But even on the women's side right now, you know, Willow and Athena, he threw Britt Baker in there, even though she was bounced out of the opening round. I thought he did a better job this year in terms of talent selection for the tournament than he did last year. So I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I don't really have too many gripes, honestly, with how the Owen is being handled. He's trying to spread the matches out over a period of weeks, mostly on Collision, to try to boost the new show. It isn't working so far, but he's trying. Trey Marquis, loved the Tribal Court and loved the tease with Solo. This is cinema. Also, random question since you are the commissioner of Hog. Man, again, you people want to see me take some abuse. What did I ever do to you? What did I ever do to you? James Griffin with the $7. Solomonster, how can the WWE and pro wrestling transform itself into a more thought-provoking, intelligent, and satisfying overall form of entertainment like Mad Men, Breaking Bad, or The Sopranos? It can't. It won't. It won't ever be that. It will not ever be The Sopranos or Breaking Bad or Mad Men. It's not what wrestling is. It's not how the wrestling business works and how the writing is done for the television shows. And you know, with Vince McMahon overseeing the shows, and clearly he will always be there overseeing the shows. Things will always be changed. You think the writers of fucking Breaking Bad and Mad Men, after they put a script together for one of the episodes, the fucking showrunner, 2 hours before they're about to shoot the scenes, just blows up the entire script? Can you imagine? Now imagine that becoming a recurring thing, right? They have a set script. Well, let's change this and let's do this and let's take this out. Are you kidding me? It can never be that. Shadow Darknose with the $12 super chat. Also agree with the Waller theory thing, especially because their gimmicks kind of overlap. Well, it's funny because I always kind of looked at Waller when he was in NXT as like their version of The Miz. I saw more of a comparison between Waller as the annoying heel with a talk show and The Miz. I never really drew the comparison between Waller and Theory until I saw them both on the show tonight, and then I was thinking about it a lot. But you know, for me, before it was more like, is he gonna be just another version of The Miz, like a good utility player who's just there to do comedy 1 second, or he could be serious the next. And tonight though was I think a good indication of what he is capable of being, which is more than just that, more than just a utility player off the bench. Rodimus Prime with the $10. With Kevin Nash making comments about LA Knight, is it fair to say that the wrestling business as a whole is copy and paste, including factions? Everything about wrestling is copy and paste. Everything has been done at some point by someone. I mean, you'll get performers sometimes that will show up who will be able to do spectacular things from an athletic standpoint that maybe we've never seen before. I remember seeing Ricochet for the first time, and Will Ospreay, and, you know, use Vikingo as a current example, right? I mean, he's doing incredible things in the ring that I've never seen a human being do before. Outside of that type of stuff, when you talk about stories and you talk about heel turns and you talk about moves and finishing holds and stuff, it's all been done. People just have their own spin that they put on it. I was making comments about LA Knight when he was Eli Drake in Impact And then in the NWA, comparisons to him and The Rock and him and Stone Cold and the cadence of his promos. This is nothing new. This whole controversy that suddenly sprung up is not much of a controversy to me. I was making these comparisons years ago. I heard it in his voice. I saw his inflections. Clearly, he was influenced by The Rock and Stone Cold. And there was a period of time where I couldn't watch or listen to a promo of his and not think that he was just trying to copy them. I thought that was more of an issue back then. He's gotten better. I think he's done a better job of kind of making it his own, where I don't listen to him or look at him on TV now and just think, oh, he's just copying The Rock. But does he have some of the same tendencies during promos and the way he speaks and some of the words he uses? It really struck me when he came out on SmackDown weeks ago in that Money in the Bank segment where Logan Paul was in the ring and he talked about, I'm going to take that bottle of Prime and stick it. I thought I was ready for him to stay, shine it up real nice and stick it straight up your candy ass. That was kind of a blatant example of like, okay, we're veering off a little too much in Rock territory here. But again, I don't look at that as a bad thing. It's getting over. It's getting over. I don't see what people are complaining about. Oh, he's just trying to be The Rock. He's trying to be The Rock. Yeah, well, you know what? The Rock is only one of the most successful stars in the history of the fucking business. So, like, fuck him, right? Again, I don't see what the problem is here. If he's borrowing certain things from some of the biggest stars in the business, as long as he can do a good enough job of making it his own. I mean, if you were going to borrow anything from anybody, boy, it would be The Rock and Stone Cold. I mean, what are you going to borrow shit from fucking Virgil? Maybe fucking Nails? Come on. It's fine. Sam Bluestein with the $4.99. I wish they would put a quarter of the energy into the women's storylines as they have with the damn Bloodline. It's so frustrating as a fan of women's wrestling. Yeah, the women were shortchanged tonight, but everybody kind of was. But it's not just an issue tonight. It's as if they just, we focus on the women's championship program, whatever it is at any given moment, and very little attention is paid to anything else as far as the division. That's why the division is in the shape it's in right now, especially over on Raw. You got Rhea Ripley, and then you got everybody else. SmackDown now, at least, you got Asuka, you got Charlotte, you got Bianca. Io's going around with the briefcase. They have a few players now in the division. But, yeah, I mean, the effort is not there on the women's side, booking-wise, the way that it is with the top acts on the men's side. That's pretty clear. Turtlehead makes a great point. Yeah, Flair and Ali borrowed from Gorgeous George. And I mean, my God, Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan. One of the biggest names in the history of the business. A household name. Even people today. Hogan is far removed from his prime. Know who Hulk Hogan is. Maybe for the wrong reasons, but they know who Hulk Hogan is. Hulk Hogan borrowed almost his entire act from superstar Billy Graham. People like superstar Billy Graham influenced a lot of people, not just Hulk Hogan. Jesse Ventura. How many people were influenced by Dusty Rhodes and his style and his promo style? Actually, the Hogan Billy Graham example is probably one of the better ones to use. And Hogan went on to become the biggest star in the business because he made it work for himself. I'm sure if Twitter existed back when Hogan was first coming up as the Hulkster, we would have had the same discourse on there. Oh, he's just a fucking, he's just a Billy Graham knockoff, this guy. You would have had the same comments being made about those guys back then as people are making today. It's just that back then there was no social media and there were no podcasts. Today there's social media and there's podcasts. So Kevin Nash can go on his show and he can talk about LA Knight being a Rock ripoff. And people can go on Twitter and they can go on Threads or whatever fucking platforms exist now. So many of them. And they can talk about this stuff. Rob G. Greatest trophy in sports. He says Stanley Cup all day. I had the chance to hold the Stanley Cup, to touch it and to hold it many years ago. This is back like in the mid-90s. And it was very cool. So the Stanley Cup, definitely more so than the Lombardi Trophy, in my opinion, or the World Series Trophy, NBA Trophy. So, I mean, as far as like real sports go, yeah, it would be the Stanley Cup. But if you want to talk overall, I mean, come on, it doesn't get any bigger and more important than those giant WWE logo belts. I mean, come on, who doesn't want one of those? The Andre Memorial Battle Royal Trophy, which has been destroyed, I think, multiple times. Daniel Malcolm, again, thank you for that $35 super chat from earlier, Daniel. I appreciate that. Evan Watson, I was there live. It says Seth Rollins hum. He's singing the Seth Rollins song. Luis, Fox 11, KTTV, went against the full 35-minute Tribal Court segment. We got a commercial break at 8:13. Fox 11 does not like Roman 3 belts. Apparently not. Justin Glasner, Grayson Waller, Balzac swimmer confirmed. That's right, he can swim. He can swim. Arabian Night 2000, where is Bobby? Are they saving him for Roman after SummerSlam? You know, I haven't heard about any injury, but I would have to assume maybe he's hurt. I don't know why you wouldn't be doing something with Bobby Lashley right now, heading into one of your biggest shows of the year. They have AJ on TV. I mean, barely. He's working with fucking Karrion Kross in 2-minute matches. I would, until I hear otherwise, I would assume he's probably hurt, but I have not heard anything about Bobby Lashley. Nash DTV with a $9.99. Hey, Nash. What's going on? Since you are a horror movie fan, I wanted to know if you know what movie this is. I saw only one scene. It's a horror Christmas movie where the killer wears a reindeer costume. He stabbed a girl in the eye. Well, I've seen a lot of horror movies, and I've seen a lot of people get stabbed in the eye. So you're going to have to do a little bit better than that. I have no idea. A reindeer costume, though, that doesn't ring a bell to me. It doesn't sound like a movie I've seen. I feel like killer in a reindeer costume I would remember. So I'm just not sure. Maybe somebody in the chat can chime in. Booba. Why your Mets have to come and do my D-backs like that? That sounded like a very sexual super chat. Why do the Mets have to come and do my D-backs like that? I don't know. I don't want to have any part of that. I don't know. Was it Santa's Sleigh with Bill Goldberg? Was it Santa's Sleigh? I think the only scene from Santa's Sleigh that I saw was, I think it was the opening one. Right? Isn't it like a dinner scene or whatever and he kills a bunch of people? I think that might be the only part of the movie I actually saw. Morton. Who is Edge final opponent before he retires? Before he retires, I would really like to see Edge work a program with Kevin Owens. Probably Kevin Owens as a heel, though, but I guess it doesn't matter. I feel that would be really good. So, Edge and Owens would get my vote. The real CS02, do you think Theory turning babyface would help him? From what I hear online, he seems like a pretty likable guy. I don't know. I mean, babyface Austin Theory sounds even worse to me than heel Austin Theory, but if it allows him the chance to kind of open up more and he actually shows more of a personality, then yeah, I'd be in favor of it. That'd be better than what he's doing now. Morton says, thoughts on Kevin Nash's comments on LA Knight. Already talked about that. I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, but again, I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm not even sure if he was saying it in a derogatory way or if it was just Nash making an observation, which is a perfectly fine observation if he wants to make it, but I don't see anything wrong with it. We have Arabian Night. Triple H likes smaller cards, with SummerSlam only being approximately 8 matches. Who are more likely will be left off the card more? Ronda, Shayna, Edge, or a U.S. title match? Probably a U.S. title match. I could see them doing it on television. Probably on SmackDown the night before. I hope not. I'd like to see LA Knight get a U.S. title win in a big stadium with 45,000 people. But of the ones that you outlined here, Ronda and Shayna will be on the SummerSlam card. Especially if that turns out to be Ronda's last match. That'll be on the SummerSlam card. Edge, if Edge has a match, it's going to be on SummerSlam. He already wrestled on TV tonight. If he has an opponent at SummerSlam, which I can't imagine he wouldn't, then it'll be on the show. Who that opponent is going to be, though, I have no idea. I mean, they could always do a rematch with him and Waller, I guess. They could run it back a second time. I don't really see that happening. I don't know that there's a real need for that, but yeah, of those three, the U.S. title match would probably be the one that gets left off. They're not going to leave Gunther off the show. So of the 2 secondary titles, the Intercontinental title, much better chance of being featured on the SummerSlam card. Morton says, Bloodline actually needs to be on a 3-hour show. Yeah, if they were on Raw, they could take as much time as they want. That would actually make Raw more interesting. DEH Sires. Theory needs to lose the title and have a blood feud, where you can see what he can do. Should have happened with Gargano when he returned. Well, they don't like blood in WWE. He also says, to extend this Bloodline story until Cody at WrestleMania, would you be open to the story that Roman is forced to leave the Bloodline and creates his own to feud for 4 months? I don't know what you mean by that. Forced to leave the Bloodline and create his own to feud for 4 months. I'm not sure what you mean. Retro KOH, does it make the Usos look stupid when they fall for Roman's fake emotional breakdowns time and time again? After a while, you would think they would learn. Yes, makes them look very dumb. It does make them look very dumb. I mean, again, how Jey Uso didn't see that coming, right? I mean, it makes him look very, I don't know, what, naive, I guess would be a good word for it. John Strowman, Plumber Moxley is a disgrace to this business. Thank you, Jim. Or John. Dr. Scorpio, if my hockey team one day wins the Stanley Cup and gets that ugly-looking belt, I would rather not see my team win the cup, just to not see that ugly belt. Well, that's a pretty shitty reason to not want your team to win the championship. I'm glad you're not a Mets fan. What a terrible reason to want to see your team not win the championship. Just because Triple H might send them one of those replica belts. That's a pretty bad reason. Chris AXC has a $5 super chat incoming. LA Knight did a dark segment with Hit Row before the show. Total Vince move. Biggest match we never got. Taker Sting or HBK Rock? Well, the LA Knight thing I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. I mentioned the dark segment. And yes, it was very stupid to not get him something on the show. The biggest match we never got. Undertaker, Sting, or Rock, Shawn Michaels? I think it would be Rock and Shawn Michaels. I mean, 2 big matches for sure, but Rock and Shawn Michaels, I think, could have been something real special. And I think in the end, it would have been the better match. I think it would have been the better match. History would have been a lot kinder to that than probably to Undertaker and Sting. Unless you did Undertaker and Sting when they were really both in their physical prime. It's funny, you know, Undertaker, I say physical prime. Undertaker in the late 90s, like 98, 99, some people would say that was peak Undertaker. But honestly, his physical peak I mean, if you look at him, it was probably the mid-2000s. You know, when he was having those matches in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9. I would argue that may well have been his physical prime. You know, he was having better matches then than he did 10 years before. But I would still go Rock and Shawn Michaels. We have got Arabian Night. Who do Owens and Zayn face at SummerSlam? DIY or the Judgment Day? I think probably Imperium. I think Imperium is the one that probably is the most likely. DIY, I mean, Gargano hasn't even been on television. I think it would be too soon for that. But that does need to happen at some point. Hydrograd 57 with a $20 super chat. Hey, Hydrograd, how you doing? Who are two people on the current roster, one heel and one face, that you think could benefit from a heel turn and a babyface turn? I think Drew McIntyre could benefit from a heel turn because as I look at the Raw roster right now, they have two big baby faces on the Raw side in Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. By default, I guess the Judgment Day would be the top heels right now, and Damian Priest, I think, has one foot kind of in the babyface category. I don't think it'll be very long before he switches over. So then you have on the heel side, you have Gunther and what other top heel? You know, I guess right now it would be Balor and Gunther, but I just think in the long term, like 6 months from now, it would be better for McIntyre to go heel. So I think they're going to need a strong top heel or a couple of them. Gunther could be one and McIntyre could be the other. And then that opens up more people for him to work with. Then he can feud with Rollins. He can feud with Cody. As far as heel to babyface, LA Knight would be the obvious one. LA Knight is still technically a heel. I don't know what he would technically be at this point. WWE has not done anything to kind of treat him as a babyface. So I say just kind of make it official and kind of slide him over to the babyface column. But I also look at the SmackDown roster, and I see someone, well, I was going to mention somebody else, but no, I think those are the moves. Those are the moves I would make. Wink the Cosmic Grandma with the $9.99. They should have Heyman go to NXT to recruit a batch of goons to protect Roman. I don't get to stay up late anymore and watch the live streams, but I catch up throughout the week doing my assignments. Wink, as long as you check out the streams at some point, that's all that matters. I don't think that Heyman going to NXT to recruit a bunch of developmental talents is going to do much for Roman Reigns. So, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I don't think so. Boney with the $5. If the IC title is seen as important in WWE's history, why does the Honky Tonk Man have the record instead of a workhorse like Brett or Shawn? Because the Honky Tonk Man happened to be champion for 454 days. Because it was great heat to have him constantly go over the baby faces. People hated him that much, and it worked. Not every champion needs to be champion for 400 days. So Brett had the title a couple of times. Shawn had the title 3 times. Jericho had the title 10 times, or maybe 9 times, right? I think he has 10 Intercontinental titles if you include the IWGP one. You can't just go by the number of days of the reign. You know, back then, they didn't have the announcers go on TV and say, oh, Mr. Perfect has been the Intercontinental Champion for 257 days, and Shawn Michaels has been the champion for 387 days. They didn't give a shit about that back then. This whole thing where they count the days of the title reigns, this is a new phenomenon. This is only in the last few years that we started hearing about this. So, you know, the fact that he was champion for so many days doesn't make him the best Intercontinental Champion. We have got Turtlehead. Did you ever doubt El Dandy? No, I can't say that I did. Dr. Scorpio, at least they are not playing. He says playing. I assume you mean paying millions to Bobby. I'm sure Bobby is making a very good living. I don't know what he's making per year, but I'm sure he's eating well. He's living well. I wouldn't cry for Bobby Lashley. Probably drives a nice car, right? A lot nicer than I do. Wampa Tapa, thank you for the $20, man. I appreciate that. Very cool of you. No message, just dropping a 20 spot. Silver Tower. When I hear people talk about Moxley, they say he wants to be Stone Cold. I say he wants to be Kool-Aid Man because Kool-Aid Man feeds people his blood. You know, the whole Moxley wants to be Stone Cold thing is like an old argument. I don't hear people saying that anymore. The only thing I hear now is people bitching about how often he bleeds, which is a lot. Which is too much, I agree. I don't really hear people talking about him and Stone Cold and making those comparisons anymore. There was a period of time where, this is back in 2016, where he was getting these great reactions and he was coming out and there was just something about him and his swagger at the time, I guess you would say. He was kind of giving off Stone Cold vibes in some ways. Not that he was Stone Cold. I mean, nobody ever will be. But again, it was like a brief period of time. And I don't know. Are there still people making those comparisons today? Informationist. Do you think Punk or Joe takes the win tomorrow? Sadly, I think it's going to be Punk. If it were me, Joe would go over. I don't think Punk should beat Joe yet. You know, I'm hoping Joe wins and we get Joe and Ricky in the finals, but I just have this feeling it's going to be Punk. I have a feeling Punk may win the whole thing. But if it were me, Ricky wins tomorrow over Powerhouse Hobbs and Joe gets the win over CM Punk. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. Rizzo with the $10. I know you are sick of the Russo Cornette stuff, but I think the Bash at the Beach Dark Side of the Ring is going to be good. Also, poor Kross, I heard he didn't even get an entrance tonight. No, he did not. And yeah, B in the chat, I am going to be talking about the Moxley comments about blood, his dissertation on blood in wrestling. I will be talking about that on the podcast on Sunday. Phil Dog, do you think JD McDonough joining the Judgment Day would be a good thing for him? I do. If the Bloodline is the top faction on Mondays or on Fridays, then the Judgment Day is the top group right now on Mondays. They're the top heel faction on Raw. Bloodline is the top heel faction on SmackDown and really in the entire company. But I very much have been enjoying the Judgment Day stuff. So him being a part of that crew would not be a bad thing for JD McDonough's career. Morton, what year was Cena the most hated? 2012? Who would ever think he would be so loved today back then? Oh, it's not hard to believe. Yeah, there's an expression, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And when he disappeared to go start doing movies full time, a lot of people, I think, realize, hey, I kind of miss that guy. Not everybody. Some people were very happy to never hear from him again, probably. But there is something to be said for when somebody goes away and then they come back, you kind of realize, like, oh, you know what? Maybe that guy wasn't so bad after all. As far as when he was his most hated, I don't know, man. He was pretty hated even in that late 2000s before we even hit 2010. Most hated, though? I would probably say it's probably around 2011, 2012, somewhere in that area. A Silver Tower just gifted a total of 10 channel memberships.
Too sweet to be sour. It's Silver Tower.
Silver Tower is the man. A Silver Tower, thank you. We have 10 new members of our family. We've lost a lot of channel members. I know there were a lot of gifted ones that expired, so it has been quite the come down. So to claw back 10 of them is very cool. So thank you to Silver Tower. All right, so I think I'm caught. I believe I have. Oh no, wait, now we get one more. Dr. Scorpio, technically, does Joe get a title shot if he wins? Well, you see, that's why I have this feeling that Punk is going to win, because he's still pushing the belt in the bag. And what he said in his comeback promo, if you remember, was, I'm the champion until somebody pins me or submits me for this thing. Now this is not for his title. I mean, he's not the champion, but do they want to pin Punk if he's trying to tell this story of I have this belt and I'm the champ until somebody pins me? That's what makes me think Punk's going over tomorrow. But that would be interesting, though, if Joe beats him and then they run the match back with the idea that, hey, you said that you're the champion until somebody pins you for that belt. Well, why don't you give me a shot? You could do Punk and Joe for Punk's version of the AEW title at Wembley Stadium. Sign me up for that. Punk and Joe in front of 80,000 people. Arabian Night, what if Kross replaces Priest in the Judgment Day and moves to Raw? So then you get Scarlett and Rhea together. You think people are weird now about Rhea? Imagine Rhea and Scarlett coming out together every single week. I think people would lose their minds. Kross in a faction, honestly, is not a bad idea. I actually think that might be something that could help him, is having other people to play off of. So yeah, I'm not against that. I'm not against that idea. I think that could potentially work. I don't really want to disrupt the Judgment Day too much. I mean, we've talked about maybe JD McDonough joining, and you just don't want to start tacking on a lot of people. So you have to make a choice whether you go with one or the other. But I think the idea of Kross being part of a larger group is not a bad one. It's not a bad one at all. The Be the Booker goal tonight was 400, and we have well exceeded that. So I thank you for that. All of your likes and thumbs up on the video helps when it comes to getting it into people's recommendeds. So any video that you end up on, any stream, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Let's go ahead and be the Booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the Booker.
We've had an interesting week of Be the Booker, and I'm hoping that we can continue on in a positive way. That's what we're here to find out. Let's do some Be the Booker here on a Friday night, and we're going to kick things off here with Switchblade Jay White, the former IWGP champion. He is actually challenging FTR tomorrow with Juice Robinson in that Eliminator match on Collision. Could be working with CM Punk very soon. Switchblade, that's a hell of a way to kick things off. I like that. Switchblade Jay White gonna go one-on-one with Tommaso Ciampa. I would say we're off to a rip-roaring start. What do you think? That's how you start Be the Booker. Tommaso Ciampa against Jay White is a great way to start Be the Booker. Ciampa and the Switchblade. Over on the ladies' side, kick things off with Brie Bella. Brie mode indeed. But wait, I'm being told that Brie Bella has, unfortunately, she has come down with a cold, and she is not medically cleared. Just work with me here. She's come down with a head cold, and she is not medically cleared to compete. So we're going to forget that happened here, and we're going to book a totally different match. So let's try this again. We begin with... let's just move on. Let's just move on. You know, sometimes you just have to cut your losses and just learn to move on. Tag teams, here we go. We begin with the Dudley Boys. Bubba Ray and Diva. Look at all those belts. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that three? 3 sets of tag team titles in this one photo. I have no idea what all these belts are. But there you go. Arguably one of the greatest tag teams of all time, right? I mean, just in terms of the number of championships that they've won. Oh, for fuck's sake. Son of a bitch. Who is that? 0 point. He says, I had to. No, you didn't. But you chose to do so anyway. And I do thank you for the $25, but for fuck's sake. Oh, all right. Well, look, the Dudley Boys. Let's see. Who are the Dudley Boys going to be wrestling? We got to get a drum roll, right? Get the drum roll going for this. The Dudley Boys. 2-on-2 tag team match against Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley. The Blackpool Combat Club against the Dudley Boys. Let there be blood. Because you know there would be a lot of it. I mean, think about this. Let's just think about this. You have on one side of the ring the Dudley Boys, who came from ECW, right? They had plenty of bloody matches in ECW. On the other side of the ring, you have Jon Moxley, who wakes up in the morning, probably his pillow is filled with blood. Probably it looks like a fucking murder scene, probably in their bedroom. And then you have Bryan Danielson, who literally in interviews said one of the reasons he left WWE and came to AEW was because Vince McMahon would not let him bleed. This may very well be the bloodiest match that I have ever booked in Be the Booker. But not a bad match at all. Actually, that's quite the marquee match right there. So there you go. Okay, I have caught up on all of your super chats. So I thank you again for the support. I really appreciate it. Again, your super chats are the most direct way to support here on these streams. And it is very cool when you choose to do so. We get to come back and do it all over again tomorrow night. For those of you who are going to be around on a Saturday night, I know it's a summer Saturday. People like to go out and do stuff. Could be one of the reasons why the collision ratings have collided with the ground in recent weeks. Well, we'll see. I'm actually very curious how they do tomorrow, because it was July 4th weekend last week. It was a holiday weekend. So now we have this weekend. There is no holiday. There are no excuses. I'm sure people will come up with them anyway. Oh, UFC. Oh, there was some other bullshit going on. I think this week's number is going to be the most important number yet. Because that number last week, that number was not good. Not good at all. But the lineup tomorrow is very strong. So I'm actually looking forward to that show a lot tomorrow. Just on paper, I think it's just very good. Hey, Juan Ocampo. Juan is a channel member. He's been a channel member for 8 months. Says, let's not beat around the bush. But if they keep this with LA Knight, he's officially going to be another Zack Ryder / Mizdow. Over but never pushed. Yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope that doesn't happen. They're going to be averaging 300,000 in a few months. Well, if that's the case, then they're not going to be getting any money next year on that new media rights deal from Warner Brothers Discovery, if this show plummets to 300,000 viewers a week. So Tony Khan better be doing everything in his power to make sure that that doesn't happen. All right, I'm out of here. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. I'm going to be with you tomorrow night. I hope you are too. And then, of course, episode 816 of the Sound Off will be dropping on Sunday with all the news of the week, plus my thoughts on the retirement of one of the MVPs of WWE. One of the most important figures in WWE history is calling it quits at the end of this year. And we'll talk more about who that is and why they have been so important with the company. All that and more. Get your mailbag questions in too, by the way. We're going to have a big mailbag this weekend. No Dark Side of the Ring review. So the Solomonster@gmail.com. You got any questions, send them my way, and you never know. You never know when I may pick them for the show. Silver Tower, I love you, brother. Thank you very much, and thank all of you. Be well, stay safe. I'll see you tomorrow night for the Collision review. Till then, take care, guys.